Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. It's Friday here on Sports Daily. Albracht and Castor, glad to be here with you. Jad Chambers producing things for us today. Jad Chambers, man in that IHOP hotline. By the way, for a limited time between November 6th and November 26th, head to IHOP to try special turkey entrees. Just in time for Thanksgiving. 869-1240 is that number to call to get in touch with the program today. Joining us on the hotline in just a little bit, Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats, in to talk about that massive game against Texas coming up. We'll make some football picks with Paul Savage. I just realized I haven't sent you guys picks yet, Tommy. I'll do that. You and Paul here pretty quick. We'll get those picks in, get over the standings, talk about a lot of good stuff today. Welcome in, everybody. Glad to be here on a Sports Daily. Thursday night football last night, of course, the World Series in the books. I'm running out of Rangers gear here, Tommy. I'm going to have to celebrate and get a new shirt as I've been wearing like the same rotation. How long has this been now? Same rotation of about 3 shirts for the last, I don't know, month and a half.
Yeah, I'm glad we're not in the same room and I don't have to necessarily smell you, which is good.
I do laundry like once a week.
Feel bad for the family that they're subjected to the same shirts every single day.
How long do you keep a good T-shirt in rotation? Because I'm at least like a decade or more.
Not that long. A few years. I mean, it gets to the point to where it's kind of ragged and doesn't really.
That's when they get
just kind of hangs off
comfortable.
You. Yeah, but it's not flattering.
No, it's not. I hold on to clothes way too long. I'm not good at rotating clothes, and it's not that like. I have to like wear a suit every day, but I just like I have a hard time spending money on clothes. I never spent more than I don't know like $30 on a pair of jeans, and then my wife was like, "We got to get you some better jeans." And the first time I got like a nice pair of jeans, I'm like, "Oh God, I just I don't know." But then I'm like, you know what though? I'm gonna wear those jeans every day in the wintertime, literally every day. So, yeah, I guess that's probably worth the money there. That's a good spot to spend. Are you aware of the same pair of jeans every day, guy?
Yo, absolutely. You break them in, then they feel really good. I'm actually, I hate to admit this, I'm at the point in my life where I've got jeans that, they look good. So don't get me wrong, like they're stylish, but they're kind of stretchy. Like they're kind of that hybrid, jeans, sweats kind of deal. So I'm at that point in my life where all I need are just the slip-on sneakers, and I'll be right there.
Yeah, it's listen, maybe with some Velcro, like it's okay. We're all there. We're all there. Just our wives should be happy we're not in sweats, I guess, every day, because that would also be an awesome option. I don't know where that came from, but welcome into Sports Daily, everybody. Thursday night football. Look, we got to. I thought I was looking forward to that game. I thought it was pretty good. I think it's an interesting game to pay attention to because I do think both of those teams have a shot at the playoffs. The Steelers get the win. Good for them at home. They do enough. Kenny Pickett was good enough. Their offense still seems somewhat limited, but Mike Tomlin knows how to win football games better maybe than any coach in football. The Steelers, like by a lot of metrics, Tommy, have the worst offense in football this year. They're 5-3, and their defense isn't amazing. Like this is just what they do. The Titans are interesting. Have the Titans found their quarterback? What do you think 2 weeks in on Will Levis? Because Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit were certainly ready to make that call last night. You think so? You think Levis is the guy?
I think he is the guy. I mean, at this point, the Titans don't have a whole lot else to lose. I still think that, especially knowing, now that the Titans are 3-5, they didn't know this before the trade deadline, but I think that they might have maybe made a couple of moves had they known that they would end up at 3-5 before the trade deadline. They didn't do that, but I mean, I do think that it makes sense now that you're locked in with Derrick Henry for the rest of the year. You've got DeAndre Hopkins. You didn't move him. Tyjae Spears, looks to be a fun young player to, surround Will Levis with the tools that he needs. I think that he's good. I thought that, after the first week that he played, like, okay, like there's some pop there, there's some flash there with Will Levis. Don't know if it's a flash in the pan. Don't know if it's something that can be sustained. But I think 2 weeks in, I think that, he gives the Titans a better chance than what they were doing before with Ryan Tannehill. He certainly gives them a better chance than what Malik Willis can bring to the table. So is he the best quarterback in the world? I mean, no. And I think that the jury is still out if he is a viable long-term franchise quarterback. But right now, sure. Like, yeah, the Titans can go all in with Will Levis and see what he can give them for the rest of the season.
Well, but I think they got to make a call on more than the rest of the season, right? Because they may be in a position to make a move at quarterback long term. It's interesting. Levis was interesting. He exploded in the pre-draft process and then faded at the end, right? And ended up as a second-round pick. And we've seen that happen lots of times, and those guys be pretty good. I just don't know. The timetable of it's interesting. And I think that I think the Titans intentionally didn't trade Henry and Hopkins, not because they, of course they think they can win games and get in, but even if they're just evaluating Levis, like, to me, if I'm a team and I've got to evaluate a young quarterback, I want them to have something to work with, because those quarterbacks that just get thrown in with like nothing out there and just get crushed and shelled, and like, that's not good for development anyway. I think it's better for the Titans' future to not go pick up a couple of extra draft picks for, D-Hop and Henry, who, one of whom will certainly be in the Hall of Fame, and one you probably need to start considering at some point, depending on how many more years he can play, in D-Hop. Like, those two guys are going to be critical to evaluate what Will Levis is. And if they have a short window to make that evaluation, then I think keeping those guys made sense. I think he looks okay too. I think he's got, his body language is tremendous, right? Like confidence, all that stuff. He doesn't look overmatched. His confidence to make throws is high, which is good for now, right? He's not making a ton of mistakes in that. And there were a couple of balls on that final drive that maybe could have been intercepted, but they were that interception on the last drive, they had to push the ball down the field. They were out of time. So I don't even hold that against him too much. I'm kind of with you. I think that, there's a long way to go in this season, of course. But I absolutely think there's a chance Will Levis is their guy.
Yeah, I think you've got a better chance with Will Levis being your long-term quarterback when you bring him in week 7 as opposed to week 15, right? So you've got a longer time to evaluate him with the stars around him and Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins and others. I thought he looked better than Kenny Pickett did. I mean, I know the Steelers got the win. Yeah. I'm fading on Kenny Pickett. I'm not sure. I mean, there's been a lot of regression there, I think, with him in Pittsburgh. But I mean, I guess he did what he needed to do for the Steelers to get the win.
He's a good fit for Mike Tomlin. They're not aggressive. They're not aggressive enough on offense. Yeah, you got to be a little more aggressive. They've got all kinds of weapons there. They just got to be a little more aggressive. 869-1240 is the number to call. We'll be joined next. K-State. Here comes Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats. Looking forward to this conversation ahead of the Texas game. It's next.
No way. Oh my God. Only because you're on the So AEW must be selling super bad, like really bad. Literally. It must be bad because Tyler just kept asking if I got it. And I know I know that Tyler. So it must be going.
All right, I've got Wyatt. We're all set and ready.
Sounds good.
Eight 1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Glad to be joined by Wyatt Thompson. Wyatt, this is exactly what we wanted, right? K-State to have the ability to go down in Austin and play a game that, could ultimately help them get to a Big 12 championship game. Everything that's happened this year, this is what we've been looking for.
Yeah, you want to get to the first part of November with a chance and be in the race. And certainly that has been the case. I think coaches talked this week about how focused the guys have been in this 3-game win streak since the loss at Oklahoma State on that Friday night. And you guys are well aware of it. We've talked a lot about it. I think there's been a little bit of a refocus and reset, so to speak. And they've been a lot better in a lot of different areas. And this will be a different challenge, certainly, but I know they are pumped up about it. And I think they feel like they've got a chance if they perform at the level they should or could.
Yeah, speaking of performing at the level that they can, Wyatt, the last couple of weeks defensively have been incredible for the Wildcats, allowing 3 points to TCU and shutting out Houston. And, of course, Texas is a different task entirely than the two teams that they just got done playing over the last couple of weeks. But what are some things in your mind defensively that Kansas State can take away from the way that their defense performed over the last 2 weeks in their matchup tomorrow?
Well, I think there's a lot of things. When you talk about improvement, I think you have to look at pretty much all levels of the defense, but let's focus in particular, and this won't surprise you, will it, with the secondary?
Oh, yeah. Right.
Jacob Parrish is a young talent that, frankly was in a backup role a year ago. Julius Brents and Echo Boydo were the starting corners, and both of those guys made NFL rosters and are doing well. But here is Jacob with 7 consecutive starts to start the year, and I think he is a very big key in the game tomorrow because of the fact that he's such a good cover guy. We've seen Keenan Garber come along. We've seen Will Lee, after a pretty nice start and then get injured, come back and help some. I think it would be fair to say that they're getting a little bit more each week out of Justice James and Jordan Wright. All of those guys are corners. And then those 3 safeties, we've talked a lot about this, but Savage, Siegel, and Payne have done a really nice job. And even behind them, we're starting to see a little bit better play and more play out of McKendree Steiger and Colby McAllister. So I think the secondary has made a lot of headway. Now, again, different challenge tomorrow because of the amazing speed of guys like Xavier Worthy and some of those types of people. Adonai Mitchell, the Georgia transfer, has been really good. They got a great tight end in Jatavion Sanders. But I think you have to look, too, at, and I know Coach Kleiman talked about this on the radio show last night, Desmond Purnell and Austin Moore, the 2 outside backers, have been great. I mean, he says every week that they're playing at an all-conference level. And K-State has basically had to play 4 guys at the Mike linebacker, and all have done a pretty good job after Daniel Green went down. And I think the front group, it may not have the star power with a Felix Anudike-Uzama, but I think Khalid Duke's good, and all those other guys have been really solid. So if you look at the numbers, and again, you can make, I suppose, what you want out of that, but they're first in the league, giving up 15.9 points per game. Texas is second at 16.0. That's about as tight as it gets, but both of these teams are where they're at because of their defense in a lot of different ways.
All right, Wyatt, let's talk about quarterback. I've had this theory, and you can tell me I'm crazy. I think that game last week went so well that anything they had drawn up for Avery, they maybe put back in the bag to use here and not give Texas anything on film for him. I know Will Howard plays amazing in that game, and that has something to do with it. What do you think? Was that just strictly because Howard looked so good, or was that an opportunity maybe to hide Avery a little bit from Texas?
Well, it's an interesting theory, and I think you could probably argue that there's some legitimacy to it, don't you think? I mean, you know what? You go into that kind of game, and I'm just being honest. There's no part of me at all that thought that was going to be a 41-0 game. Did you?
No, no.
I mean, they were good enough offensively that I was concerned about it. I mean, Donovan Smith had played really well. They were averaging almost 29 points a game, 400-plus yards in total offense. And, I mean, you guys saw what happened. They didn't score. the K-State defense basically held them to 113 rushing yards and 95 passing yards, and they're averaging over 300. That's pretty impressive. So again, back to the thought there with the quarterbacks, they didn't have to do after the first couple of drives a whole lot, honestly, offensively. They were grinding and pounding and doing what they wanted. And I think your point is interesting because I don't know that it's for sure that way, but I also would tell you in the same breath that I think they've got some things, and not that Texas won't too, but I think they've got some things that they're going to break out tomorrow that maybe we haven't seen in a while or yet. What do you think of that?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the case too. I wonder, like, when you're playing a team like Texas and, you know, all the different things that they bring to the table defensively, is it something, do you feel like where Chris Kleiman's going to ride the hot hand, or is this more like a, you know, designed game plan? We're going to do what we do, whether or not, like with Will Howard and Avery Johnson, or is it more like who's hot on, you know, depending on the certain time in the game, that's who we're going to ride with?
That's a terrific question. And I don't know that I'm smart enough with the game of football to actually have the best answer for you. However, I will say this. I do think you can make an argument for both of those things. And because what did we hear Coach Kleiman say on Tuesday at the press conference? We cannot reinvent the wheel. Everybody understands that those guys at the point of attack are hard to move. And yet this is a K-State team that loves to run the ball, and that's what they're doing exceptionally well right now. So you've got to probe and do some things. And that's the best part of this, I think. Yes, it's K-State matching up against 4- and 5-star guys all over the field, both sides of the ball. We get that part. But there's more to it than that. And what I mean is if you look at K-State offensively, I would tell you that they're pretty diverse. I know Coach has said all along, you guys know this, that the perception is that Will was the thrower, Avery was the runner, and he says constantly both guys can do both. We've seen the quarterback run game. We've seen, you know, option football. We've seen, you know, different types of things and movement offensively all over. And that's I think, you know, where you feel like maybe K-State can get some things, you know, whether it's zone blocking stuff or whatever it might be. I just think Texas is really talented, but I think K-State is too. And I just think that there are going to be some things available. I just do.
It is an interesting dynamic, and I feel like there's a history. Go back to last year against Tulane. There's a history of what, at least the optics to the casual viewer, that they have at times held stuff back, and maybe it's bit them. So now they have this opportunity to really take advantage of it. I wonder, too, Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats, joining us here on Sports Daily. We always appreciate your time. Have you picked up on any energy from K-State? I wonder this about, you know, Oklahoma State's going to go through this to a different level this week. I've always wondered, and this is our first chance to have, you know, somebody at the ground level. Are you feeling any energy for K-State to want to, you know, sort of give Texas the don't let the door hit you on the way out treatment this week? Do they have that feel emotionally at this, or do they care at all?
No, I think there is a little bit of that, if I'm being 100% honest. And I think, you know, if you remember back to the ball game against Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, K-State didn't play their best football after playing really great, you know, in the back half of last year. It bothered them, but I think even though they didn't play their best, they kind of proved to themselves that they belong. Texas is kind of like that. Alabama has very similar talent like that. So I think there's the thing that you're talking about where, you know, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I think K-State would like to get them one more time before they move on to what they think will be greener pastures. And so, yeah, I do think there's something to that. And also, you know, we talk all the time about those two programs leaving and how you can't replace the brand. right? I mean, that's part of it, and certainly that's true. But there's also something special about beating those kind of guys too, and our guys are motivated by that. I've seen it before. I think they're also motivated by the fact that we haven't beaten them in a while, and maybe that's the best part. Go get one. Go get one.
Wyatt, what do we know about Malik Murphy? I know he had, a fairly solid game against BYU last week in place of Quinn Ewers, but it was really the running game from Texas that took a lot of the pressure off of the freshman quarterback's shoulders. What do you think, as Kansas State is preparing for this game, is going to be a key for them as far as not only limiting the ground game, but doing what they can to hurry and rush and make Malik Murphy nervous there in the pocket?
You know what? That's a really, really good question and very astute on your part, because here at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. They have a very, very good offensive line. And Sark, by nature, wants to run the ball because everything they do in the pass game basically plays off of the run game. I didn't think they could replace Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson as easily as they have with the two guys they've got. But Jonathan Brooks is 77 yards from 1,000. C.J. Baxter, a true freshman, has been really good. But it's all about those big men up front, and they are quite good. But K-State's good, too, against the run, and they've somewhat neutralized that. So we pitched that out there to say this. I'm just going to be blunt and tell you that K-State is probably catching a little bit of a break, no matter how well Malik Murphy plays, because Quinn Ewers is not. This is a kid that will be making just his second start. But don't be mistaken, this kid can spin the ball. He was a high-level recruit. Even their fan base doesn't know a heck of a lot about him yet. But I visited a little bit yesterday with some of the coaches, and Joe Klanderman said that the kid can run, but he would much rather throw it. So I think we're going to see more of the Brooks and Baxter and Savion Red and some of those guys running the ball as opposed to Malik Murphy. But he can make all the throws. Ewers just has a little bit more experience, savvy, those types of things. And I think K-State feels like that maybe they can get some pressure on him a little bit too. We'll see if that is actually the case. That would certainly help.
As you look at the Big 12 as a whole, Wyatt, what kind of margin for error do you think exists right now with the top half basically all being so close together and jumbled in? What do you think it's going to take for two teams to make it through? Now everybody has one or two losses. Is it for K-State? I mean, is it win out? Can they afford a loss? I mean, I don't know. I am having a hard time predicting that kind of stuff. Obviously, they'd like to just win them all, but I don't know how reasonable that is for any of these teams in the Big 12 to think that that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think it would be most people are going to have the perception, I think, that Texas and Oklahoma have some advantages here. Certainly Oklahoma does with schedule. I mean, we were talking about that in August, right? But I don't think I shouldn't say it that way. I don't think few people thought that they were going to lose last week at Kansas. But that is a hard place to play, and those guys are pretty dang good. So we talked about that last night, too, on the radio call-in show with Coach Kleiman. I don't think he feels like the race is going to be over regardless of what happens tomorrow, whether we win or whether we don't, because you've got, think about from the K-State perspective, Baylor at home, at Kansas, Iowa State at home after that. Well, say what you want, but Texas and Iowa State are two of those teams that are tied at 4-1 at the top in the five-way tie. So there's a ways to go here. But all of that said, I've said this all season long. Even after Oklahoma beat Texas, I still think Texas is the most gifted team in the league. Does that mean they'll be standing at the end of the day? I think they'll be one of them, but two are going to go to Arlington. That's the good point, the good part, right? At least that's the way I look at it.
Wyatt, we're getting closer and closer and closer to this year's edition of the Sunflower Showdown. You've been doing this for a long time. From your perspective, calling Kansas State games in the way that you do, knowing that rivalry is just around the corner, and the fact that both programs are playing great football right now. And that, as you know, that hasn't been the case for a number of years. What is that like for you and your thoughts on where both of these programs are, Kansas State and Kansas, as we get closer to the Sunflower Showdown?
Well, I think everybody is excited about, what's going on in both programs around the state. It doesn't matter which side you're necessarily on, or maybe you're part of one of those house divided kind of things. Lance has done a really good job there, and everybody knows it. That they're tougher in every way. They're pretty darn elite offensively. So I think all of us are waiting for that, but you can't. With that said, though, I mean, you can't really think about that yet. I can, you guys can, but I don't think the teams are. But the fan bases, certainly. I think, do you guys get the sense that there's some squawking going on both sides already? I think
a little bit,
but I kind of
maybe a little bit.
Possibility.
I think there certainly is among the fan bases.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think you have to go back a ways, probably even before me. I remember and doing some visiting with Stan and others that have been around here even longer than I have. You guys probably don't remember back to '94, but I think that was the last time where both teams were really, really good and ranked and all of that kind of stuff. So it has been a while, but it's really good. I think we're all pumped up about the matchup looming down the road here in a couple weeks.
I want to add one more on matchups. We know now that one gets to continue. It's one of 4 in the Big 12 that will continue through 2027. We learned that this week. I know a lot of K-Staters were upset to not get Farmageddon, and I get that to some degree, but like there are casualties in expansion, and if expansion's good for everybody, you get the Sunflower Showdown. I almost feel like that's fortunate. And we're just going to have to live with Farmageddon not being an every year game. I guess and I don't, I know that history is important to people, but so is the expansion of this league.
Yeah. Well, you said a lot there, and I think you can attack that in a lot of different ways. And I'll say some things here that people will disagree with. And I respect that. I mean, K-State and Iowa State have played, I believe it's every year since 1917? Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think so.
That's some history. That's history there, and you don't want to lose that. But I think you're right in that you can't have everything when you're going through this type of change where you've had, this year as an example, Oklahoma and Texas in their final year, 4 more teams are added. Oklahoma and Texas leave after this year, 4 more teams are added. You want to protect the closest ones, and I think they did that with Kansas State, Kansas. But think about what it is if you're Oklahoma State, okay? Bedlam has been going on forever, too, and they're losing that. At least we're playing Iowa State 3 of the next 4 years, starting in 24. Again, is it perfect? No. But, I mean, if I were king for a day, if I'm being honest, I would go back and remove Greg Sankey as the leader of the SEC and remove a couple people with television and go back to some normalcy with the leagues the way they should be. But that's not going to happen. We're by that. We're past it.
Wyatt, I want to shift gears here and talk a little K-State basketball. The first exhibition game of the year was the other night. Wildcats taking on Emporia State, a pretty comfortable victory. And I'm not sure, how much you can really take away from an exhibition game. Although, as everybody knows, the big story in Manhattan with the basketball program, Naquan Tomlin suspended indefinitely. And I guess my question with that for you, Wyatt, is after watching this team in their exhibition game, how do you envision, or how do you think Jerome Tang will fill the role that Naquan Tomlin typically has with this program, whether or not the suspension is a week long or a month long or forever? What do you see the replacement value being on this program?
Well, let me go back a little ways here. He had a media gathering the other day before the Emporia State exhibition game, and I'm sure you heard this comment. If you didn't, I'll kind of just paraphrase it as best I can. Somebody asked him about leadership and who was doing that this year, and he went on to say kind of in a nutshell, and again, paraphrasing here, that Marquise Noel was one of the best leaders he's ever been around. And this is a guy that did a great job at Baylor, and they won a bunch and all of that. So that's a pretty large statement. And he kind of said that, hey, still reservations still being taken for the leadership deal. And I think that's going to be the case with trying to replace Naquan, because of what Naquan is. He is a very unique individual for me because he's 6'10" and he's left-handed. He hasn't played the game a long time, but he's very skilled at it. And I don't think you can replace that with one guy. I think one of the real keys to this season will be how this team develops. I mentioned to a friend of mine the other day, he was questioning some of the things that happened the other night. And I said, no, wait a minute. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Meaning, I think everybody, maybe to a degree, is expecting last year's team of the Elite Eight run at the end as opposed to what they were in November. Does that make sense? You got to let this team grow and breathe a little bit, because we know this. They're long, they're athletic, they're talented. It's a deep team. Let them breathe and grow some. They were good the other night. They weren't great, but they were okay. I mean, they only had 12 turnovers. They had 19 against Washburn a year ago with Marquise Noel. So I know that's a long answer and probably more than what a lot of people want to hear, but I think it is going to take everybody doing their part, whether it's replacing Naquan or whether it's replacing, Keontae Johnson, Marquise Noel, whatever it might be. I think they're going to be fine because I know that those guys are going to work their tails off at it. And but with all of that said, there's only so much you can do in replacing a guy that was, a 10.5 point, 6 rebound a game guy last year. Who knows what he could be this year if he returns or whatever. But if he doesn't come back, then you don't know. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't think there's any reason why he couldn't be a 17, 18 point, 8 rebound guy. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's a pretty significant loss. So they'll have to do some scrambling, I think. I hope that answers it in part, because, the other thing is his versatility, and that's hard to match too, because he can play, multiple positions. But I think they're trying to do that now with the 5 out, where you don't miss. And basketball is becoming more and more positionless game. You still probably have a point guard, but there are people that can play, the 3, 4, and the 5 now, where that wasn't really the case in college basketball not that long ago. Long answer, I get it.
Well, and of course, Naquan Tomlin could still return at some point this year. You brought up something when you were talking to your friend there that I've sort of struggled with. I don't know. I've feared for a while that last year's run would create this year's expectation, which I don't think is fair. What do you think is a fair expectation? I think, broadly speaking, it's probably just reached the NCAA tournament this year, but with a lot of room on either side of that because of so many unknowns and because of how heavily they leaned on 2 particular players that aren't there anymore.
Yes. Yeah, that's all pretty well said from my perspective. They did raise the bar with last year. And I, again, made the point with my friend that, you can't compare November to November. Remember what K-State did last year? They won a couple of really big games in that tournament. But I don't know that it had the real staying power or punch that they accomplished when they got into early January and went back-to-back at Texas and at Baylor. They went into a different stratosphere when they did that. Would you agree with that? I think that's pretty obvious.
Think so.
Yeah. Now, can this team do that? I'm not saying they can or they can't, but I do think that, the raising of the bar does add some pressure. Sure. I mean, but I don't think those guys are shying away from that either. We're going to be different because you don't have the elite quickness with, say, a Tyler Perry that you had with Marquise, or maybe as great a shooter, I think Tyler Perry is a really, really excellent shooter, one of the best in the college game. But think about some of the plays that Marquise made last year off the bounce and shooting the ball out to at sometimes 30 feet. You know, I don't know that I haven't seen enough of Tyler yet to know that would be a possibility. And Keontae was pretty darn good too, and just an exceptionally hard matchup. So it will be tough replicating it. But to your point about what are the expectations, that I can answer without question. I really believe Jerome Tang believes this is a tournament team. Getting there is the deal. What you do from that point forward is how you are remembered, right? And I just know last year when we got in, we had some good matchups and had a great run. Who knows how that'll play out this time? But I like our team for what we are today. Let's keep talking about it, right? We're going to do this week for a while.
We're junkies for college basketball. But between the teams, the three teams that we cover extensively, it should be a blast this year with the different sorts of expectations and changes, and it's going to be awesome. All right, Wyatt. So we'll get to college basketball season next week, but before that, we got a big football game. What do you guys have coming up on the broadcast on the K-State Network this weekend?
I'm really excited about it because that's one of the really fun venues in college football. But I mean, you'll hear from Coach Kleiman and our coordinators, and I got a really fun player interview this time with Garrett Oakley, who has done a really good job. Last week was really, frankly, one of the stars of the game with Ben Sennett being a little bit dinged up, and that was nice. So we'll feature that. Also, I would tell you that I like every opportunity I get to visit with Austin Moore, the linebacker. I'm going to do that again this week in the pregame, so it should be a lot of fun.
It's another early broadcast, 9 a.m. You'll catch it right here on KFH. Wyatt, we appreciate it. Good luck, safe travels, and we'll see if we're talking about a win next week.
Should be fun because Stan and I are flying Sunday morning to Vegas, and I'd like to come back 2-0. One in each sport. I don't know that we can do that, but we're going to give it our best shot. Thanks, fellas.
There goes Wyatt Thompson. Hey, if you're out in Vegas playing craps, don't forget your 6 and your 8. That's what I always say. I'll be out there in Vegas not too long from now, Tommy. I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Ride that lucky streak with the Rangers bets that you made.
That's right. We'll see how long. I've been on a bit of a heater, not just with that, just in general. I hit that last night. I took, Hopkins and Deontay Johnson's over, and they put them together. A little bit of a heater here. I don't want to jinx anything, but I gotta make sure that we're doing the right thing and taking advantage of that. I learned that from my dad, right? Never walk away from a heater. Can't do it. 869-1240. We'll make some picks, speaking of betting. Coming up at the top of the next hour with Paul Savage. When we return, what on earth should college football do with Michigan? Every day goes by, and it gets crazier and crazier, and I don't know what to do here because that's a team that might be in the mix for a national title this year. 869-1240. We'll talk about it next. Sports Daily rolling forward. If you missed anything with Wyatt Thompson, you can always go back and listen on the Odyssey app. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Appreciate the conversation with Wyatt Thompson there. Primetime NFL games from Westwood One available live for free right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune in to KFH Sunday night for NFL action. Buffalo on the road at Cincinnati, or you can simply download the Odyssey app, search for KFH at kickoff there. We've got some stuff to give away here. Let's do these movie tickets that we just got in. So we have a pair of tickets right now to a sneak peek of the opening of the new Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, Thursday night, November 16th at Boulevard Theaters in Town West Square. We appreciate those. We will give away a pair of tickets right now to the first caller on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. I'm a Hunger Games guy. I love those books. I didn't realize they wrote this one. I've got to get this book. I think I have it, waiting at the library whenever they get it before I see that movie. But I loved the Hunger Games books and movies. I thought they were great. I can't wait to read that book and see that movie.
I never actually read the books, but I actually really like the movies. Kind of a guilty pleasure of mine. I feel like it's been a minute since we've had a Hunger Games movie, right? Like probably.
Well, they wrote the
like
3
5
books,
or 6 years,
right? Yeah, they had the 3 books and then they made the 3 movies. And then I guess this is a prequel.
Okay.
I didn't realize this had happened. Those books.
Is Jennifer Lawrence in this movie? Is she
back?
back?
This
okay.
one? Not if it's a prequel. No.
Okay.
No,
Gotcha.
I think it's the young life of Snow, right? The white-haired guy. So it'll be cool. I don't know though, because I haven't read that book. I'm excited to do it. I love reading. I just got to find the right books. Once I go at a book, it's sort of like all or nothing, all in. All right, real quick, Tommy, this Michigan stuff. Do you think that they survived this season with the ability to play in the CFP?
No, I don't. I think it's kind of building to a fever pitch right now over the last few days. Like it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think I read that Michigan State's athletic director is concerned that the players on their team are going to get hurt because Michigan knows the calls and knows the signs and all of that.
That's a good way to try and, put the clamps down. I don't know how that logic works out, but whatever. I think the problem for Michigan is their peers in the Big Ten want them in big trouble. And that's going to be really difficult for Michigan to overcome. That's what I'm gathering from it, too. I don't know. I have no idea. Let's make some picks when we come back. We'll talk about games this weekend, college, NFL. Excited for this week. There has not been a better slate this year overall in totality than what we're going to get in this football weekend. We'll do it next with Paul Savage here on Sports Daily. We'll come right back. Here we go.
NFL Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
Imagine the sweet, tangy, rich flavor of barbecue sauce and the smoky, salty taste of crispy bacon. Well, you don't have to imagine any longer. Try the Spangles Western Bacon Cheeseburger. It's a 3rd pound of Black Angus steak burger on a butter-toasted bun and topped with smoky barbecue sauce, crispy bacon, and onions. The Spangles Western Bacon Cheeseburger. The perfect burger for your sweet, tangy, smoky, savory cravings.
Freshness made to order. Spangles, it just tastes better.
Here's Renee Stephen from Spangles with a sweet treat.
Come in and try our Gerdelli Sea Salt Caramel Apple Pie Slide and make it your new favorite treat. Stop in soon because it's only back for a limited time.
Back at Spangles, the Caramel Apple Pie Slide. We start with an entire slice of warm apple pie and add layers of creamy vanilla soft serve and top it off with Ghirardelli Sea Salt Caramel. It's a sweet spin on a time-treasured treat. Spangles, it just tastes better.
Join us at Odyssey as we all do our one thing, together millions of things for our planet. Planning a road trip this fall? Maximize your fuel economy by inflating tires to proper pressure and packing light. When we each share our one thing, it becomes a million things for our planet. What's your one thing?
Oh, come on! Sounds like it may be time for an upgrade, and Computer Depot has what you need. Laptops, desktops, tablets, Macs or PCs. Computer Depot has it all, and at the lowest prices. Don't trust an online retailer to offer you a low price and then send you something that doesn't meet your needs. Stop into one of the 2 Computer Depot locations in Wichita and get on-site help from experienced technicians that will hook you up with the upgrade you need and at a price that will beat Amazon. Visit ComputerDepotLLC.com for locations and hours. That's ComputerDepotLLC.com.
Wichita State Volleyball is back in action Friday, November 3rd at 7 p.m. against new conference rival North Texas for Educators Appreciation Night. All educators receive free admission to the match with a school employee ID. Bring the family back out to the Roundhouse the next day on Saturday, November 4th at 2 p.m. for Wichita Eagle Family Day. Receive 4 tickets to the match, 4 hot dogs, 4 popcorns, and 4 drinks for only $32. Purchase your tickets today at GoShockers.com/tickets or call the Shocker Ticket Office at 316-978-FANS.
Fine, sir.
The choices we make affect the moments we live. That's why who you choose for health insurance doesn't really matter until you really need it. With Medicare Advantage from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, you'll know that no matter which moment you choose, we've got you covered, on and off the pickleball court. So the moment there's an ouch or whoopsie, we'll be there with a wow and whenever you need us. With more coverage options than ever and more reasons to love your plan, like premiums starting at $0, dental, vision, and hearing coverage, and an allowance toward approved over-the-counter items, the choice is simple. Medicare Advantage from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. Call 888-565-4199 or visit bcbsks.com/enroll now. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas offers Medicare Advantage PPO plans. Enrollment dependent on contract renewal. Not connected with or endorsed by the U.S. government or the federal Medicare program.
Introducing the all-new Apex family, infused with sustainable materials and crafted for durability to keep you moving and safe. Available now at Red Wing Shoes. Great for indoor and outdoor jobs in construction and manufacturing, Apex boots are purpose-built for on-the-job performance. Apex exists to help workers evolve to meet the demands of their jobs. Stop in and see us today. Red Wing Shoes, 6600 West Kellogg, and visit us on social media.
Go Hog Wild, Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you.
Have you had Hog Wild's giant stuffed baked potatoes? They're anything but basic and really hit the spot when you're craving a little comfort food. Hi, I'm Josh Wissing, Hog Wild partner and general manager at 47th and South Broadway. Nothing is more satisfying than our baked potatoes loaded with butter, sour cream, cheddar cheese, bacon, and green onions. Add your choice of tender house-smoked Hog Wild meats like pulled pork, chicken, or brisket for a little extra. My finishing touch, Hog Wild's famous barbecue sauce and a few jalapenos.
Order online at GoHogWild.com. Hog Wild Pit Barbecue, 6 locations in Wichita. Also in Derby, El Dorado, Hutchinson, and Salina.
Go Hog Wild, Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you. But don't be late, we close at 8.
Brought to you by South Central Kansas Problem Gambling Task Force. Sunday's Chiefs game is at 8:30 a.m.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College football tomorrow. It's number 21 Kansas on the road visiting Iowa State. The Cyclones are on a 3-game winning streak, and they're among a 5-way tie for first place atop the conference. KU just a game back. FanDuel has the Jayhawks as a 2.5-point underdog going into this game. That'll kick off at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening in Ames. Kansas and Iowa State. That'll be nationally televised on ESPN. JUCO football. Butler Community College is on the road visiting 9th-ranked Dodge City. That game will be early tomorrow afternoon. Live, Dennis Higgins will have the call of the Butler Grizzlies on 98.7 and 1330 KNSS. And the number 1 ranked team in the nation is Hutchinson Community College. Blue Dragons are 8-0 on the road at Independence. 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. It's a home weekend for Shocker Volleyball. Wichita State in second place in the conference, hosting North Texas, 7 o'clock tonight, 2 o'clock tomorrow at Koch Arena. Shockers have won their last 5 home matches. I'm Ted the Sports Head!
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Albracht, Castor, Savage, Jad Chambers producing, driving this crazy ship. We got picks results from last week, fellas. I was bottom end of the barrel here, 4-6. Tommy, you were 6-4. Paul, you were 5-5. Right there, jumbled in together. Paul still hanging on to a 2-win lead over me. He's got 11 up on you, Tommy. So,
Wait,
we're just a little over halfway through this thing. So
hold on.
I'm making up ground. I'm making up ground.
No, wait a second. I'm having problem, Jan. I'm having problem with my headset. I just heard something about Tommy winning, and I know. What's some problem with my headsets? It's cutting in and out.
Hey, you know what? Even a stopped clock is right twice a day.
Well,
and we didn't get that celebratory text message halfway through the weekend either. So no more jinxing. Tommy's learned it there. Hey, look, we can make these picks, and I can keep winning bets. And if I lose these and win bets, it's all a win. But I just want to, like, for everybody out there, like, these are not necessarily the games we're going out and betting. These are, to me, either the biggest games of the weekend or the most difficult to pick, which would not be the best games to bet. But if you're, that we're taking you through those for that way, in the interest of this competition. All right, let's get this thing going here, Jad. You can get that music going for us. Tommy, you'll get to go first here, and we're going to start you with one of the early games and the one that we're really looking at this weekend, K-State and Texas. Texas is 4-point favorites at home. They've kind of stayed right in that range. Where are you at on this one?
Man, I like the Wildcats here. And really, I think the biggest thing is the Wildcat defense, which has come to play the last couple of weeks. They've only given up 3 points in the last 2 weeks. You can't expect that when you're playing Texas. But also Texas will be starting Malik Murphy. And if the Wildcats can shut down the Longhorns' running game, which they've been able to do historically this season, they're a great run defense. I think the Wildcats not only can hang with Texas, but I like Kansas State on the money line too. I'm going to take the Wildcats, and I'll take those points.
Paul, where are you at with this one?
This might be the toughest college game for me to pick. It really is. This is one of those that I'm not sure how to go on this thing, because obviously both these teams are pretty good. And now, the one thing, as I relied on last week, it got me 5-5. I relied a little bit as a tiebreaker for me for home field advantage. Texas is at home. K-State's going into Austin to play. That might be the only reason that I take Texas. I'm not crazy about the 4 points. I'm not crazy about Texas having to give up 4 points. I think this could be a close game, but I'm going to go ahead and take Texas just based upon last week. Some of the picks I made with home field advantage worked out for me. So I'm going to take Texas.
I'll break this tie. I'm with you, Tommy. I like the Cats. I kind of like them on the money line. I think, there's a better chance they win the game outright as much as like play some back and forth, whatever. But I'll take the points if I can get them. So I'm going to take K-State as well. I think, the timing of this feels good for the Wildcats. I think things have lined up for this game just about as well as you could have hoped for. So I will also take K-State, take those points, but I kind of like them on a money line bet this weekend. All right, Mizzou and Georgia, maybe the premier game of the weekend, certainly one of in the SEC. Georgia's laying 15 points at home against a pretty upstart Mizzou here team. Paul, do you think the Tigers can keep this within a couple of touchdowns?
No, I don't. And here's why. I know Mizzou's been ranked. I know everybody thinks they're pretty good. But if you remember, probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I watched them the entire game with the University of Missouri. I wasn't impressed with them, and here's why, Tommy. Part of the reason was because I did not think that on both sides of the ball up front they were as physical as a couple of the teams that they've played. That was what I observed. That's what I saw. So because of that, you're going to go in and play at Georgia, a very physical football team on both sides of the ball up front. I think Georgia covers, and I think Georgia covers fairly easy.
This is a hard one for me because Georgia does feel like a team that's just going to keep getting better and better and better and better. But Missouri's this upstart. There's this upstart nature to them. It sort of feels like Georgia's squeaking by, guys. But, in the last 3 games, they've won by, 38, 17, and 23 points. I'm having a really hard time with this one. I think I'm going to take Georgia here, and I think I'm going to lay the 15 because they do seem to be hitting a stride. Man, that's tough to do against a Missouri team that I've kind of found myself pulling for a little bit in the SEC. But I'll take Georgia and lay those points very, very reluctantly, Tommy.
I don't like Missouri. I don't like Eli Drinkwitz. I think he's a goofball. I don't think he's a great football coach. I think he's at best an average football coach. But that being said, I mean, man, like I was really thinking that he was going to lose his job a few weeks ago. And all he's done with his team and Brady Cook is turn things around and get Missouri ranked and now get them in a premier matchup against Georgia. Do I think that Georgia wins the game? Yes, I do. I think Georgia is a better football team than Missouri, but 15 is a lot of points. I'm going to take begrudgingly Missouri. I'll take the 15. I'll take that island. If they can keep it within 2 touchdowns, I feel pretty good about that.
When did you think Eli Drinkwitz is going to get fired? Because they're
going into the Kansas State game. Well, remember, I talked about it quite a bit. That I felt
they
like
only beat Middle Tennessee State by 4.
That was part of it. And it just, what his tenure there hasn't been great until this year. Right. And, I really thought that a few weeks ago, Kansas State would go in there and blow the doors off of Missouri. And then it would be a downhill slide for Eli Drinkwitz. And that didn't happen.
All right. Let's move on to the next one. Another big one, Bedlam, OU, Oklahoma State. I believe I'm up first on this one. Oklahoma State getting 6 points at home. What have we been saying about Oklahoma State at home as underdogs?
Well, they're good.
Play DJ Khaled. All they do is win.
I think it's 9 out of 10 of the last times Mike Gundy's squad has faced that. They've been winners. I'm taking Oklahoma State. I'm taking 6 points all day long. This is a bet that I will make. I'll take the Cowboys in 6. Tommy?
I understand all of the reasons why things are favoring Oklahoma State. I think as far as the picks are concerned. Bedlam in Stillwater for the last time before OU leaves to go to the SEC. Their hated rivals in Stillwater want to absolutely murder the Sooners on their way out of the Big 12 for the final time. I mean, it is going to be absolutely electric inside T. Boone Pickens Stadium tomorrow in this game. I understand all the stats about Mike Gundy and how he wins as a home underdog and all of that. The only thing that stands in the way with me is the fact that, man, OU has got to be angry after what happened a week ago in Lawrence. And if they want to have any shot of even sniffing the CFP, they've got to win this game. So knowing that, actually, I'm going to take OU and I'll lay the 6 points.
Break that tie, Savage.
Wow.
What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, both you guys make great points. And it's really interesting on this particular game. But I'm going to come back to, the Big 12 is losing OU. They're leaving. I mean, that's kind of like a slap in the face. And, this is a big game for Oklahoma State. This is going to be a game that these kids talk about when they're grandparents. And I'm just thinking to myself, is there any way that Mike Gundy does not let these guys play well and play hard and play physical? I've just got to take Oklahoma State. I'm with you, Jacob. I'm going to go ahead and take Oklahoma State. I don't know that OU is as good as we thought they were.
Yeah, that's a part of it for me too. But, Oklahoma State still, as many big wins as they've had lately, it still feels like, are they really that good? I don't know.
This is
Ollie Gordon. Right. Ollie Gordon is incredible. Like, he is freaking amazing.
Right.
So, I mean, like, if he goes off, then, it's going to be OSU
But
all day.
This game's personal for Oklahoma State right now. It's personal.
More personal probably for Oklahoma State. I would agree with that. All right. Iowa State, 2.5-point favorites against KU. Tommy, you're up first. It's night game in Ames. I mean, it is what it is.
Well, I want to start off before I make this pick. I'm going to call out Paul Savage here for a second.
Why? What did I do?
In our picks a week ago, when we picked the KU-OU game, he told me after my justification that this long-winded, like trying to talk myself into Kansas beating OU. I mean, he was all over me about that pick. And Paul, I just have to ask you, what happened in that game a week ago?
Well, I would like to take this time to apologize for having been totally wrong on that particular pick. That may have been the worst miss I've had all year. And Tommy, I apologize. I'm not saying I won't belittle you again sometime, but for rest of this show, my apology stands, and I will not belittle you until we get to the pro picks.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you
next
for that.
one pick. All right, so
the next one
3 to pick now.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So it's a really difficult place to play. Ames, Iowa is inside Jack Trice Stadium after dark. Iowa State, I think a lot of people had left them for dead after the gambling scandal and Hunter Decker's not being part of the program anymore and all of that with the Iowa State program. And all Matt Campbell has done he's rallied the troops for the Cyclones and gotten them in a position to where they can be competing for a Big 12 championship potentially. That being said, though, the Jayhawks coming off of a big win, I don't think that Lance Leipold is the kind of coach that will let his squad have a letdown when they go on the road a week after the biggest win in the last 35 years of the program. I don't know if KU will win the game necessarily, but if you're going to give me points, I'll take the Jayhawks and I'll take the 2.5.
Savage?
That was brilliant. That was brilliantly stated, Tommy. That might have been one of your best picks that you've ever made. On the other hand, Iowa State is still playing at home. You're the one point that you are right on is that they're better right now than I thought they would be at this point, having watched them earlier in the year and actually having watched them several times on television earlier in the year. And you're taking KU, no surprise. But you know something, Tommy? Because I admire your ability to pick college games, I'm going to follow you. And this is the only reason I'm taking KU is because you're so brilliant. You're just unbelievable.
So then when it doesn't hit, then you're going to blame me for it. I know your drill, Savage. I know how it works.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and take KU.
I'll make this a sweep, and I didn't think that it would go this way. I'd still have massive doubts about Jason Bean. I have all along, and they keep getting it done either way.
That's right.
This is not the Brock Purdy and Breece Hall Iowa State Cyclones. They're not as good as they once were. They've played really well, but so has KU. I mean, KU's played really well too, and they're one of the best coach teams in the country. That's just the bottom line they are. And I think that they can overcome the brutal road trip, all of those things, and somehow squeak out a way to get it done. 2.5 points don't hurt either. We'll make that one a sweep. All right, one more college one. We can rip through this one. LSU, Bama. Bama 3-point, home favorites in one of the great rivalry games in college football. Paul, what do you think here?
Well, to be just quick on this one, I think Bama wins this game. I think they win it by more than 3 comfortably. LSU is still good. They're not bad. I mean, they got players, they got athletes. I think their coaching staff is good, but they're not as good as they have been in the past. You can't go to sleep on an Alabama team, even though it's 3 points. I don't think that's enough games at Bama. I'm taking Alabama.
I think I'm up next. Look, I'm going to take LSU.
Wow.
I'm going to take LSU here because I think that their offense is fantastic, whether or not their defense is. And I still am not totally sold on the Bama offense. And, they've played, they've won some really close games since that Texas loss. I think LSU's offense is going to be too much here. I'll certainly take the points in games that have been close historically. I'm going to take the Tigers, Tommy. You can take a side here.
Well, I think that Nick Saban is taking a page out of Mark Twain's book. Mark Twain he had a legend of where he read his own obituary, and then he said, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." I think it's the same thing with Nick Saban. The reports of Alabama's death greatly exaggerated. Bama is, I think, finding their stride a little bit. Are they as dominant as Bama teams over the last several years? No, probably not. But they're still Alabama, and he's still Nick Saban. I'm going to take the Crimson Tide. I'll lay the 3 points.
All right, let's go to the pros, fellas. In the first game of the Sunday for us is Chiefs. Dolphins. Chiefs -2. It's moved back a little bit toward the Chiefs. I'm going to take Kansas City here, guys. I think that's a great bounce back spot. Miami has beat the crap out of bad teams and been beaten pretty handily by good teams. And I don't know what the travel or any of that does. That part of it makes these hard games to actually bet. But I think this is a big spot for the Chiefs, and I'm going to take Kansas City. Tommy?
I don't have a good feel on this game at all for a variety of reasons, and some of which you just mentioned, the travel, going to Germany, how that all works, what we make of the Dolphins, how the wide receiver room for Kansas City will respond after a week ago. I just don't have a good handle on it one way or another. So I'm just going to follow my heart, I guess, on this one. I'll say the Chiefs, and I'll lay the points.
All right, Paul?
Again, very difficult.
But make it a sweep here?
Yeah, I'm probably going to make it a sweep. But the main reason I'm going to make it a sweep is we were all stunned at the Denver game and how that turned out. I was stunned. I know you guys were stunned. I heard you talk about how stunned you were on that the next day. I just think that Kansas City is a good football team, but sometimes something gets into them and they don't play like it. I'm going to go ahead and take the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are a bit of a pretender because you're right. They beat up the guys that aren't very good and struggle with those that have some players and are better. I'm going to go ahead and take the Chiefs, make it a sweep, and it could be a lot more than 2 points. So I mean, the Chiefs could win by a whole bunch more than that.
Fellas, this NFL weekend is just nuts. How about Seahawks Ravens? Ravens are 6-point home favorites. They're laying 6. Tommy, you're up first here. None of these games are going to be easy. It's an incredible NFL weekend. What do you think of this one?
You know what? I'm a believer. I'm becoming a believer in the Ravens. I wasn't earlier this season. I felt like it took Lamar Jackson a few weeks to find his footing and figure out exactly how things were going to go with the new offensive coordinator. I think that they have found it. I think that they have started to click. And so for that reason, I'm going to take Baltimore. I'm going to lay the 6 points. It's within that touchdown margin. I like them to win by a touchdown.
Okay. Paul?
Well, I'm kind of with Tommy on this. Although I think I took the Seahawks last week or the week before and won with them, I still think Tommy's exactly right. You know, the Ravens, I think, are better than we thought they were going to be, and they're certainly better as the season goes on. I think I'm going to go ahead and join Tommy and take the Ravens. I don't do it with great conviction, however, fellas, but I'm going to take the Ravens.
Tommy, you said that you found yourself becoming a believer in the Ravens. I already believed in them. I've found myself becoming a believer in the Seahawks. I think look, all the metrics in that they're playing great football. I'm going to take Seattle. I'm just going to take the 6 points here because I think these are two really good teams, and that's a big number, bigger than I thought it would be. I'm going to take the Seahawks and take the 6 here. Cowboys, Eagles. Paul, you're up first on this one. You know, Cowboy fans, Eagles fans wait for these games all year. We finally get it. Both teams playing well. Philly, 3-point home favorites. Where are you at with this one?
Well, this might be one of the more entertaining NFL games of the weekend. I really like this game. I'm going to settle in on this game a little bit and watch it. But you know, the Cowboys, they've done well for me. Most of my picks, I think every time we've had them up, we've had them on a bunch so far in this season. But every time we go with them, I take them, and I think I've only lost once with the Cowboys. I'm on a streak with them. I've probably got 5 or 6 wins. I'm taking the Cowboys, boy. I've been riding the Cowboys all the way so far this pick season. I'm taking the Cowboys.
Look, I'm going to give Tommy an easy island to take here because I'm going to take the Cowboys as well. The Cowboys have their dud games. We've seen one. They really feel like they've figured something out for Dak here. Now, he has been much better at home, though. That is the one thing that causes me concern is that they're on the road. I just think that Philly is not where they were a year ago. They may get there, but I don't think they're there yet. I'm going to lean on the Cowboy defense a little bit here, and I'm going to take Dallas as well. You can almost never get points with the Cowboys. I'm going to take the opportunity to get the 3 points here. Tommy?
I had Cowboys +3 written on my piece of paper,
man,
but I'm going to change it. Because
it's too much of an island.
I'm behind. I need an island here. For all the reasons that you guys talked about, why I was going to pick the Cowboys, I agree with you on all of that. But I mean, the Eagles are the only team in the NFL that have only lost one time. So I mean, they're winning. They're not as dominant as they were. I can make a justification to take an island with the Eagles at -3. So I'll go ahead and do that.
All right, Sunday Night Football, Bills-Bengals, one of the games we've been looking forward to all year long. Little heat being generated this week. Bengals maybe talking a little bit too much trash for my taste. They're 2-point favorites, but I still like them in this game. They've had Buffalo's number. I think Buffalo, it's going to take time for Buffalo to get where they were before all the injuries. Maybe they can, but not yet. Cincinnati's hot. They're playing great. Burrow looks good. I'm going to take the Bengals and lay the 2 points. Tommy?
I'm actually going to join you on this. I mean, it's a huge matchup, right? I'm not as high on the Bills. I mean, the Bills have either squeaked by or they've lost. And I go back to the Patriots game a couple of weeks ago. Ugly for the Bills. That being said, on the other side, the Bengals They're hot. It's what they do. They start off slow, then they get going. I'll take the Bengals. I'll join you, Jacob. I'm going to lay the points.
Paul,
interesting.
You got a Bills Island chance out there.
I'll tell you what, I could do worse. I mean, I think Tommy has a better island with the Eagles and the Cowboys. I think Tommy's island will be better. But, you know, the Bills are fighting some injury problems. We all understand that. I mean, but at this point, who isn't fighting injury problems? But, you know, I was all prepared. I was ready. I was ready to go with the Bengals. But this is an island that I think I'm willing to take. I think I'm going to go ahead and take, for betting purposes only, I'm taking the Bills.
Okay, that's a good one. Now we got Monday night. We don't usually pick Monday Night Football, but I think this is one of the better games that we've had, so we're going to do it. Chargers, Jets. Jets are 3.5-point home dogs here, which is interesting. I believe, Tommy, you're up first on this one to wrap things up here. Jets, 3.5 points. You giving them that at home? What are you doing with this one?
Well, it's a question of who do I trust more. I don't trust either one of them, but I guess I trust the Chargers more than the Jets. I don't know. It's tough. I'm going to take the Chargers. I'll lay the 3.5. Don't have a lot of confidence in either one of these teams, but I'll take LA.
All right. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of with Tommy. I don't have a lot of confidence, but I have a love affair with the New York Jets because of Hard Knocks on HBO. So I'm going to take the Jets just because I know all the guys. I feel like I know these guys, and I like them, and I'm rooting for them. I'm taking the Jets because of Hard Knocks.
Taking the Jets because of Hard Knocks, and I'm really glad because I didn't want this to be a sweep. I'll take the Chargers as well. I like the Jets and what they've done. I do think the Chargers are very susceptible to the pass, though, and that's what could get them into a little bit of trouble. The Jets, I mean, because then the Jets are going to have to lean on it. I think this is a decent matchup, honestly, for the Chargers. So I will take I almost said San Diego. I will take LA, give Paul that island. Interesting picks, interesting islands. There will be movement, I think, this week. Because we look, these games are tough this week. Doesn't surprise me that what did we have, one sweep and it was KU? I think that's right. I think we just had one sweep there. And that would have been the game I would have never thought would have been the sweep. So fun games to pick this week as well. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll look at, we can peek at some of the high school football matchups this week. We can get back into the rest of the sports weekend. All kinds of good stuff coming for you here on Sports Daily. All right, everybody, welcome back in Sports Daily. Glad to have you here with us. We touched on this for just a second. Let's spend a minute with it. Paul, what do you think? This Michigan thing, can college football allow Michigan to potentially play in the CFP this year? We know the NCAA moves criminally slow. Like with all this stuff going on with the sign stealing, and now you have videos of this guy like appearing on other teams' sidelines and gear, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Can college football allow them to play in a CFP?
Well, this is crazy, and this is like that step too far. I mean, who hasn't tried to pick up? A quarterback walks up to the line of scrimmage and he has a check with me and he makes a call. Teams all the time try to figure out, well, what's he saying? What they try to, that's the normal part of trying to, pick up signals, pick up messages, pick up what's going on from the other team, communications. That's done all the time. It's done every game, practically every game. But this is carrying this stuff a little too far. And because it's being carried a little too far, I think that with technology today, with what people are able to do, with different types of equipment in the world of scouting or looking or trying to figure out what somebody's doing, you can't let them get away with this, because I mean it could get even more drastic. So I've got a feeling, here's your example. If you ever want an example to change behavior, this is that example. And I believe Michigan's behavior will be changed, and I believe it's going to cost their head coach his job. I really do. I do not believe that he is going to be allowed to keep the job. Not because Michigan may not want to get rid of him, because he can't be afforded to keep his job because of the pressure from everything going on.
I don't know, Tommy. Like Harbaugh's future seems a little more certain to me, that like this is probably it. But Michigan this year is where I think this gets really interesting. Long term, Harbaugh being there doesn't seem likely. This year, though, like they're in the mix to go to a CFP. Like, what do you do with them right now?
Well, so here's the difficult part about all of this is that the CFP is a separate entity from the NCAA, right? Like there's the CFP committee, but they're not affiliated with the NCAA. So, I know that when the first rankings came out, the committee was asked the question about the whole scandal with Michigan. And I think that the chair of the committee said something about like, we're just trying to pick the best football teams. Like we don't have that, enforcement is not our job. Like we're just trying to pick the best football teams. But I think that eventually there will be enough pressure that comes down from the NCAA and maybe others where the CFP will be forced to act in some capacity. And you know what? Like, I think that you're right. I think that this is going to be the end for Jim Harbaugh. There have been a variety of things that have happened recently with Jim Harbaugh. He served a suspension to begin the season, right? So already pretty thin ice for Harbaugh. I can't see a scenario in which he survives this. And I really think, to Paul's point, I do kind of agree. Like, set the example now, be swift and harsh right now to prevent this from happening in the future with other programs.
And that's why this group of guys that are going to make these picks, they'll do it. I mean, they're under no obligation to do what they can do, whatever they want to do. And they will be able to make, Michigan number 5 or number 6 or number 7. They can do it. They have the power. And I think they probably will, because these are people who consider themselves the stewards of college football, the integrity of college football. I think they're Tommy. I think they're not going to put Michigan in, because they're going to set an example. Say that, it's up to us. We make the picks. Here's what we think. And I don't think Michigan's going to make it, period, no matter what.
But here's what I don't know either. Can the CFP just say, no, you can't get in no matter what our rankings say?
Well,
like
who's to say?
Other than ranking
I don't know if they
out.
have the mechanisms to do that sort of thing.
Like if it's so clear and obvious that they need to be there and the CFP is handcuffed in that way, like, whatever it ends up being, they're, unbeaten or whatever, and they have all the way. Do they have the mechanism to say, but you can't play for our championship? That's what I don't know. I don't honestly, legitimately don't know the answer to
I'll
that.
bet they can.
It's just, it will be an interesting thing, because the NCAA we know moves like a snail.
Right.
But does the CFP doesn't have to do that.
Right.
I this is going to be. I mean, the best case scenario for the entire planet is they just lose, right?
Well,
a couple
yeah,
of games
right.
here and don't get in,
right?
Because it is so. It's like the Astros, right? Like there is a line. Like you've clearly crossed that line. Like there's gamesmanship and there's cheating, and they've been cheating.
Yeah.
According to everything.
One quick note, though, real quick, if you don't mind. What do you guys think the portal going out from Michigan is going to be like this year?
I don't think honestly.
Yeah,
honestly.
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't think the players care.
No kidding. Really?
Well, I think that it's going to depend upon what kind of sanctions come down from the NCAA. And if they're swift and quick with it and the punishments, like if they are, I don't know, prohibited from playing in a bowl game, any bowl game for the next, I don't know how many years, then you better believe that there's going to be an exodus of players that leave that program.
A lot of potential in there to leave this program. I just think that this is going to be one of those things that, you're going to see Michigan backtrack in their ability to win Big Ten championships, get to big bowls, get into the Final Four. You're going to see a situation where, the player quality is going to go down. I think it probably will. I don't know how much. I mean, they're Michigan, for guys' sakes. I mean, that's who they are. But I think you're going to see the quality of player go down just because of this deal. It's going to get ugly, guys. We haven't seen the worst of this situation yet.
Well, what will hurt them is if they can't play for a time. That's why you'd lose. That's why you'd lose players. I don't think the players care as much that it's happening as much as if they lose the ability to play in a CFP.
Right.
They care about that.
Point well
right?
taken.
Like
That's
and that may be a part of the punishment too. Like I what a mess. What a mess. I can't. It's just goodness. It's too bad, is what it is. All right, let's take a quick look, fellas, at the high school football week here at Kansas. We're in the portion of the playoffs that get really, really fun. Last week is a tough one because everybody makes it, right? And it creates some matchups that sometimes are not the best. What do you guys say, Paul? Who do you guys have? You guys have the big one, I think, this week, the biggest one.
Yeah, it's a rematch with Northwest, and it's at Northwest. So looking forward to that. It's going to be a slobber knocker, as they say, and it's going to be a lot of fun to be a part of that game. But there's some other big games. I mean, you look at Derby and Lawrence, and the reason I bring that game up is the winner of the Northwest East matchup will play probably Derby, I think. Lawrence is a good football team, but it'll probably be Derby. There's some really good matchups. Junction City and Washburn Rural in 6A. And it's going to be a heck of a fun weekend. I mean, the football quality, obviously, once you get past that first round, these are all good football teams. Jacob, I don't know that anybody can say that whoever wins, it was an upset, because they're all good football teams from here on in. Really good football teams starting next week, too.
5A, Tommy, is the one that always gets wild on the west side because they're essentially all local teams. Capon will play Great Bend this week, Mays South and Hutch in one of the better games of the week. Eisenhower and Hayes, I think, could be really interesting. And Liberal and Mays, all, from our area. Now, our listening area here is much smaller, right, than the general area. But even the metro teams, 5A is always a blast. And I think it's going to be a blast this year, too.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on the Mays South and Hutch game. That's going to be probably a lot of fun to watch. But then also Eisenhower is the 2 seed. I mean, this is really a major test for Goddard Eisenhower to show that, they are on the map in 5A, right? Like they've had a great season so far. They've sort of ran their way through. Now they're taking on the 7 seed Hayes.
Hayes
you
is
get
good.
You get past this game, you get past Hayes, then you're really there, and you're playing potentially down the road for a state championship. So it's been really exciting to follow the Eisenhower program this season. And they've got a big test this weekend.
Hayes has Malik Ba, who's one of the better players. It's a good one. The other quick area, and we'll take a break. 3A, you've got a potential. We're 2 wins for Cheney and Andale away from a rematch of that unbelievable, one of the great high school games ever. So that's out there too. All right, let's take a quick break. On the way out here, Jad, let's give away some HTO. Do want to mention here that from now until November 27th, you can get 30% off at HTO on homebrew tea bags, any of the Pelican products, including the big fancy coolers and water dispensers there in the store for sale. 30% off now until November 27th. Let's give away a free iced tea and a free brewhouse coffee offering from HTO. The tea available Wichita West, East, and in Derby. The brewhouse available at East and in Derby. First caller, 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline, will get those free tea and coffee cards. We'll come back with more Sports Daily right after this. Congratulations to Mark for winning some tea and brew house coffee from HTO. You win those prizes by calling the IHOP hotline at 869-1240 for a limited time between November 6th through November 26th. Head to IHOP to try special turkey entrees just in time for Thanksgiving. All right, fellas, let's talk a little Chiefs-Dolphins here. So we've been looking at this all week. The Chiefs are now there. The Dolphins chose to travel earlier. We all picked Kansas City, actually, didn't we? That was the other sweep. So we had two sweeps in our picks. I have seen a lot of momentum from people looking at this. I think there's a lot of people on the Chiefs this week. I look at this game more as honestly an opportunity for the Dolphins as I do the Chiefs. And here's why I say that. If the Chiefs win this game, they'll be what we thought they were, right? Herm Edwards, you are who we thought you were. If they lose the game, I'm not going to be that worried about it. But if the Dolphins win this game, then they've set themselves up and established themselves, right, as one of the real contenders. If they lose this game, it's like, well, they can't beat anybody good. They've had 3 chances and they're 0 for 3. I think this is more of a spot for the Dolphins to say something one way or the other than it is for the Chiefs. That's for me, Tommy. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it when we were giving our picks that, I don't have a good handle really on the outcome of this game just because things get wacky when it's overseas, right?
Right.
I asked Chelsea Messenger that yesterday, and she's like, well, the only thing I know of is that the Jags when they're playing because they're good at, doing, playing games overseas. This one's really tough. And I think it really, again, it comes down to a couple different things. It comes down to how good the Miami defense can be in limiting what Patrick Mahomes is going to want to do in this game. We know how high-powered the Miami offense is. We don't quite know exactly how consistently good the Miami defense is, and that's going to be, kind of their Achilles heel in this a little bit. But then also with Kansas City, they're missing Nick Bolton, and that was a big issue for Kansas City a week ago against Denver. They could not stop the run. Now, of course, Miami, their high-powered offense runs through, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. It's throwing the football. But Kansas City had a really, really difficult time shutting down the Denver running game. They've got to have a better outing this weekend if they want to have a chance to win this game.
Paul, where are you at with this? Like if Kansas City laid an offensive egg like they laid last week, how much more concerned? You may be concerned already, but what does a Chiefs loss here do for you when you think about the Chiefs and their chances to win a Super Bowl?
Well, I think it impacts them, and I don't know about because of the win-loss. I mean, you get into the playoffs, you make a run, and you get into the Super Bowl, then you win the Super Bowl. I get that, but it certainly doesn't help, and it doesn't help a team that's expected to have leadership by like Mahomes and Kelsey. And I mean, it's just this is unacceptable. Now, the one thing that I will say where I was taken back about the Dolphins is, and we've talked about this on this show several times, and if I was to say, Tommy, Jacob, name me 2 or 3 of the teams with the most overall team speed in the NFL. Now, I get it. All NFL teams run well. But there are those that run better than others. And if I was to say, give me 2, 3, 4 teams in the NFL that run well, I think you'd probably have Miami in the mix. I mean, I think I would have
one.
Huh?
They'd be one.
100%
They'd be number one.
Yeah, okay,
they're the
that's
fastest
fine
for sure.
But all pro teams run well, but the Dolphins are something else. And so, with that being said, overall team speed. There's an old saying in football of any caliber: speed kills. And speed kills, absolutely. That's a little saying. You've seen it on T-shirts, I'm sure. And that's the one worry that I have. But with that being said, everybody deals with speed. We've seen Miami be good. We've seen them not be so good. And so, if you're going to compete for a Super Bowl championship, then by golly, step up, Kansas City. Do what you got to do. You're certainly capable. You are certainly capable of doing that, on both sides of the ball, so step up and play. That's my opinion. But the speed of Miami is something else, and that does worry me for the Chiefs.
Well, yeah, I mean that's Miami's thing. That's what they do.
That's their thing.
I mean they run, and it all starts with Tyreek Hill.
And that's where it starts.
That's
where it starts. That's
you
right.
have the Tyreek Hill factor here. The Tyreek Hill factor is tremendous. And I think that it's hard to imagine, but he is better now than he was in Kansas City. Like, he just is.
I know.
And I don't know if that's because more attention goes to him and not to Travis Kelce, but it's not like they don't have a great running game. Jalen Waddle there. I mean, Tyreek Hill is pretty definitively better now than he was even then, and he's going to want to light the Chiefs up. There is no question about that. And the thing that he does, like, you could just say, well, the Chiefs just need to get to Tua so they can't get Tyreek Hill the ball. Tyreek Hill can get the ball in about 1,000 different ways. So stopping him, I mean, I don't know what you do to stop him. I have no idea, but the Chiefs are going to have to figure it out.
I mean, can they put 13 guys on the field on defense? I mean, that might be the best way.
There you go.
No, I do think that one other thing to keep in mind with that, and it plays into what you were just talking about, Dan Israel mentioned it on Tuesday. L'Jarius Sneed did not have a good game against the Broncos. And, I think he was on, who was he on? Cortland Sutton, I think, for the majority of the game. Didn't have a great game in the secondary. And so you've got to have a more locked in and better effort from the Kansas City secondary this weekend when you're defending not only Tyreek Hill, but when you're defending Jalen Waddle also. Now, the one good thing is that for Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo is that they're familiar with Tyreek Hill. They had him on the team for a number of years. They know what he can do. So they've had a number of days to get ready and prepped for how you try to defend Tyreek Hill. And I think that's the key point. Try to defend Tyreek Hill, because I don't know if there's really anything you can do that can be super effective from start to finish. Like, I don't know if you can lock him down entirely. I think that sometimes you kind of have to give up some of the, some things to be able to make it work. But that's going to be a supreme challenge for Kansas City this weekend.
Right. Well, can I answer what do you do?
Incredible.
Do you mind, Jacob? Let me just take a second and answer Tommy's question. What do you do? Well, what you do is you get pass rush, you get pushed in the middle. You make the Dolphins do 1-step, 3-step stuff, at quarterback, make them do certain things. But how do you stop a Tyreek Hill? You get good pass rush. That's what you do. That's the best way I can think of to stop a guy like Tyreek Hill.
Well, I just don't. I mean, he gets the ball so quickly and
then
does his damage after. Certainly, how you would help, the deep pass, but that's Tua's thing, is getting it out quickly and getting it out accurately. And he's going to be looking a lot for Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill's a chip on the shoulder guy, fellas. I mean, let's be real about it.
He
wants to make a statement here, but they do too. So do the Chiefs. I mean, quite frankly, they want to say, hey, we're just fine without you.
Right.
It goes both ways a little bit there. Right. I cannot wait for that game. Man, it's going to be awesome.
It'll be fun.
All right, 869-1240. It's going to be a busy weekend. We'll tell you what's on tap, where you can hear things, and when next. All right, we have a massive weekend here on the networks coming up for you. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, Paul Savage on our way out here. Jad Chambers been producing. Been a great week. Appreciate all our guests. You've got Jim Rome following us today. So tonight you can listen into the Chris Kleiman Show right here at 6 o'clock. On Saturday, things get going 9 a.m. Pre-game coverage of K-State, Texas, Butler football at 1 o'clock over on KNSS. Sunday, 7 a.m. coverage begins from the Chiefs Radio Network on KNSS. On KFH, you'll have the national call beginning at 8, and then Buffalo, Cincinnati in primetime. Coverage begins at 6:30. Been a great week, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you Monday.